Imagine a wall, not of brick, but of solid concrete and reinforced steel, stretching for thousands of kilometers. This was the Atlantic Wall, one of the most extensive and expensive military construction projects in history. It was designed to be an impenetrable fortress, a guardian of a continent, bristling with defensive measures. Billions in resources and countless hours of labor were poured into its creation, shaping the very coastline of Europe. Massive gun emplacements, hidden bunkers, and millions of obstacles were all part of this grand defensive vision. The goal was simple: to repel any seaborne approach and make the coast an unbreakable line of defense. It was a monumental feat of engineering, a symbol of power and supposed permanence carved into the landscape. But for all its concrete, steel, and strategic placement, this colossal wall had a fatal flaw. It was built on an assumption, a prediction of where the decisive moment would occur. And when that moment finally came, the most expensive wall in history did almost nothing. The plan was born in the highest echelons of command, a response to a looming threat from across the channel. Strategists believed a massive, static defense was the key to securing thousands of kilometers of vulnerable coastline. The order was given, and a monumental construction effort began, unlike anything seen before. Hundreds of thousands of workers were mobilized, a colossal workforce dedicated to this single, immense project. Materials were shipped from all corners of the continent: cement, steel, sand, and gravel in staggering quantities. They built day and night in all weather, racing against a clock they could not see. The landscape itself was transformed, with cliffs carved out and beaches reshaped to accommodate the fortifications. Each bunker was a fortress in miniature, designed to withstand immense punishment from air and sea. The project was a testament to centralized planning and the power to mobilize immense industrial and human resources. But a plan is only as good as its underlying assumptions, and this grand strategy was fundamentally flawed. The wall wasn't a single, continuous structure, but a complex system of interlocking defensive points. There were colossal casemates housing long-range coastal artillery, the heavy hitters of the defensive line. These guns could hurl massive projectiles far out to sea, intended to halt any approaching fleet. Smaller bunkers, housing machine gun nests, and anti-tank equipment were scattered along the beaches and cliffs. Interconnected by tunnels and trenches, these positions were meant to support one another in a coordinated defense. On the beaches themselves, a deadly garden of obstacles was planted to shred landing craft. There were submerged concrete tetrahedrons and metal hedgehogs designed to rip open the hulls of incoming vessels. Observation posts were built at the highest points, offering panoramic views of the sea approaches. Every element was meticulously planned, creating a layered defense designed to be overwhelming and demoralizing. It was a fortress on a continental scale, a static monster of concrete and steel, waiting for a test. From the sea, the wall must have seemed like an unbreakable shield, a line of pure, brute force. The propaganda of the time reinforced this image, portraying it as the pinnacle of defensive architecture. But this image of strength was, in many ways, an illusion. The wall was a mile wide and an inch deep. Its immense length made it impossible to fully staff. Many bunkers were undermanned or equipped with obsolete gear. The best personnel and equipment were often concentrated in specific areas, leaving vast stretches of the coast relatively weak. Construction was also inconsistent. Some sectors were incredibly formidable, while others were hastily and poorly constructed. The wall's strength was concentrated around major ports and the most obvious landing sites, like the Pas de Calais. This concentration was based on a critical assumption that the opposition would choose the shortest route across the sea. The entire defensive strategy was a massive gamble on predicting the enemy's move, a gamble they were about to lose. The wall was a giant, sleeping dragon, but the approaching knights knew exactly where it wasn't looking. While the wall was being built, an even more ambitious project was underway on the other side, a campaign of pure deception. Known as Operation Fortitude, its goal was to convince the defenders that the main landing would happen at Pas de Calais. A phantom army was created, complete with a famous general placed in command to give it credibility. Inflatable tanks, plywood aircraft, and dummy landing craft were positioned in southeast England to be seen by reconnaissance planes. A constant stream of fake radio traffic was broadcast, simulating the communications of a massive force preparing to mobilize. Double agents fed false intelligence to the defenders, confirming their belief that Calais was the target. This elaborate ghost story was incredibly effective, tying down crucial defensive units in the wrong place. The defenders of the Atlantic Wall were looking intently in one direction, completely unaware of the real danger gathering elsewhere. The greatest weapon against the wall wasn't a bomb or a shell, but an idea, a lie told on a massive scale. The stage was set, the real fleet was assembling, and it was heading for a place the wall barely protected: Normandy. Then, under the cover of darkness and poor weather, the real armada made its move. It was the largest seaborne expedition in history, a floating city of personnel and machinery. And it was not heading for the heavily fortified Pas de Calais, but for the wide, sandy beaches of Normandy. As dawn broke, the defenders in Normandy awoke to an unbelievable sight: a sea turned black with ships. The local defenses, while present, were a shadow of the fortifications that stood waiting miles away. Meanwhile, at the Pas de Calais, the great guns of the Atlantic Wall stood silent, their crews waiting for an enemy that would never arrive. The deception had worked perfectly. The wall's strongest teeth were completely bypassed. Landing craft began their journey to the shore, facing resistance, but not the impenetrable barrier that had been built elsewhere. The wall was designed to stop a frontal assault, but the real maneuver was a strategic sidestep. The most expensive fortification in history had become the world's most elaborate and costly spectator. As the beachheads in Normandy were established, the main event moved inland, away from the coast. The great bunkers and batteries of the Atlantic Wall were now behind the front lines, isolated and irrelevant. Their powerful guns, designed to command the sea, could not turn to face the threat coming from behind them. Some garrisons held out, but they were pockets of resistance in a battle that had already moved past them. The colossal investment in static defense had failed to account for the speed and flexibility of a modern maneuver. Figures in different uniforms would approach these fortresses not from the sea, but from the land, from the direction they were never meant to face. The wall became a series of captured monuments, symbols of a strategy that had been outthought and outmaneuvered. The cost, measured in materials and labor, was astronomical. The return on that investment was virtually zero. It was a lesson in the danger of putting all your faith in a single, inflexible plan, no matter how grand. The Great Wall fell not with a bang, but with a quiet, deafening silence of irrelevance. Decades have passed. The great conflict is over, but its concrete scars remain etched upon the coastline. The Atlantic Wall is now a collection of silent ruins, slowly being consumed by time and tide. Nature is reclaiming these man-made mountains as grass grows over their roofs and vines crawl up their sides. The once menacing gun barrels are rusted, their mechanisms frozen by salt and air. They have become unintentional monuments, drawing tourists and history enthusiasts instead of repelling fleets. Their dark interiors, once filled with tension and purpose, are now empty chambers echoing with the wind. These structures stand as a physical reminder of a colossal strategic miscalculation. They are a testament to the idea that the most imposing defense can be defeated without a direct confrontation. Each crumbling bunker tells a story of immense effort, misguided assumptions, and ultimate futility. They are not memorials to a great stand, but to a great absence, the ghost of a confrontation that never happened. The story of the Atlantic Wall is more than just history, it's a timeless lesson in strategy. It demonstrates the profound vulnerability of even the strongest static defenses in the face of ingenuity. Intelligence and deception proved to be more powerful than tons of concrete and steel. The ability to adapt and mislead was the key that unlocked a continent, not brute force. The wall's creators prepared for the last great struggle, but their opponents were already thinking about the next one. It highlights a fundamental truth. No amount of fortification can protect you if you are looking in the wrong direction. The resources spent on the wall could have been used for more flexible, mobile forces that might have changed the outcome. This principle applies far beyond the battlefield, in business, technology, and even our personal lives. Building a fortress around yesterday's problems is a sure way to be vulnerable to tomorrow's challenges. The Atlantic Wall failed because it was an answer to a question the opposition was no longer asking. From its ambitious conception in rooms of strategy and smoke, to the monumental effort of its construction by a vast, mobilized workforce, to the illusion of its impenetrable strength, a facade of concrete and steel, undone by a clever and pervasive campaign of ghosts and whispers. The wall stood waiting, a giant looking the wrong way, as the real moment of history unfolded on a different shore, bypassed, irrelevant, its purpose extinguished before it could ever be fulfilled. Now, it is a ruin, a playground for the wind and a classroom for the curious. The most expensive wall in history serves as a permanent, silent reminder that the greatest strength can be a weakness, and the most formidable obstacle is often the one you fail to see.